Mad Sports Radio.
What is that which gives me joy? Baseball.
This is the Bronx is Burning podcast.
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Mark, boy, the Bronx is burning with Juan Soto signing with the New York Mets. Simply incredible, making headline news from New York to LA and around the world, really.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, Sunday night, kick off the winter meetings down in Dallas, which got going like in full force on Monday. And there is Soto, 15 years, $765 million with the Mets and Steve Cohen. And I think the ramifications are multi-layered. Number one here in New York is, the Mets are right there standing shoulder to shoulder with the Yankees as a major market team. Cohen targeted Soto, got his guy. The Yankees made, more than just a good old college try. They offered him $760 million. But, I mean, Soto's deal, with the suite every year for his family, after 5 years, he can up his annual average from $51.5 to $55 million. I mean, the deal in essence is worth $805 million. He's got a full no trade clause. The emotions didn't come into play. It's just for this area, Mike, like to see a star Yankee leave for the Mets is jarring, even though he was only in the Bronx for 1 year. I think Yankee fans obviously licking their wounds. Met fans celebrated, and rightfully so. And the Mets are going to be an organization that is going to be have to be dealt with for a long, long time here, as long as Cohen and his family are running the team.
Mark, this is such a huge story. We have to bring in veteran sports writer Bob Herzog. Wrote for Newsday for a bunch of years, covered the Yankees and Mets. And what's your initial thought when you see Juan jumping from the Bronx to Queens, Bob?
Well, I had multiple reactions. First, I reacted as a journalist thinking, whoa, what a story this is. And I wasn't as well connected to the agents as some of the other guys, so I would have been more reacting than breaking the news. And then, of course, I reacted as a fan. How could they let him get away over what seemed like only $5 million? But now, a day or two later, we're seeing there was more to the story, that there's an opt-out clause, there was the suite, a lot of things. So basically, it's wretched excess.
You were around, Bob, in the early 90s when Barry Bonds and Greg Maddux and Ken Griffey wanted to come to the Bronx here. You can't survive this and move on as the Yankees did in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. But they don't have the young kids coming up like they had back then. There's nothing in the pipeline that Stick Michael put together back then.
Oh, of course, that was just before the. I won't say the core four because that slights Bernie, but that was just before Bernie and the others were coming up. And yes, you're right. They have Damergis. Let's see if he's as good as people think. And they've had Volpe and. But basically, both as a fan and a journalist, I could only think about what they're saying, the pivot. What's next? That's why this story is so interesting. They already signed Max Fried last night, so they're moving. Purely as a fan, you'd say, okay, if they sign Max Fried and trade for Kyle Tucker, which I don't know if that'll happen because it'd be a rental, and then add this guy and that guy and that guy, then you could say, all right, still a good team. Soto's great, generational. I loved watching him. But some little things are slipping out, which I'm not sure if you wanted to get into, but I'm a little disappointed that if it's Boris's side or whomever is leaking this silly, petty stuff out about the flavor of the Gatorade, that the trainer didn't have changed it to his favorite flavor one time, and that they didn't give his family the best seats, and that the Yankees didn't want to pay for the suite. Just make the contract $764,500,000, and you got your suite. So I was a little surprised that Boris or whomever leaked that out because it looks petty to me.
Mark,
Yeah, well, just on that, I mean, I think it's all nonsense. I mean, I just do. I mean, I think it's a way of trying to spin it to where it's like not just about the money, that it was more than the money. Well, the Mets have a brighter future, or the Yankees didn't do this. The Yankees, if he was that upset with the Yankees, with how certain things were handled, whether it be a security guard or whether it be the gate or whatever it might be, then he would never have had the Yankees at the table. I mean, and I get that's a negotiating clause, but listen, it could have been. I mean, the Blue Jays were right there. He was going to get paid. It was a ridiculous amount of money. Timing is everything. Is he worth $51 million a year? No. Is he an unbelievable player? Absolutely, unbelievable hitter. I would say. He's not a great outfielder, but I mean, but what he can do offensively for a team is unquestioned. I think there's all this other stuff is all nonsense. I mean, it really is. And I think I don't know why you need to paint the Yankees in a bad light on the way out, for whatever it might be. Listen, the Mets won the battle. If you want to sit there as a Met fan who went through all the years of the Wilpons where they weren't going to the table to get big time players. Now you have an owner that spent a ridiculous amount of money. And congratulations to Steve Cohen and the Mets. Like it is a monumental signing whose ramifications will go on for years. With all that being said, if you want to spin it to where it wasn't anything else but the money, to me that's nonsense, because it always comes down to the almighty dollar. And the deal's value, given the suite, given the escalators, given everything, that is north of $800 million. And when you look at it, it wasn't just a $5 million difference. It was more like a $45 to $50 million difference. And when you factor all that in, that's a lot of money that Soto was never going to leave on the table. And that's why he's a New York Met. That's fine. The Mets are a better baseball team now. But why do you have to make it more than what just it is the fact that he wanted the most money possible. It's okay. It's fine. He took the most money, and he's going to another New York organization. I never thought he was leaving the New York area. I thought for a while here that he was going to go to the Mets, because I thought this was the guy that Steve Cohen had targeted for north of a year, that he was going to make a statement. And you know what? The Mets owner did.
Bob, I think the Yankees dodged a bullet in a sense. You were on the beat back in 2007 when A-Rod opted out of his contract. Cashman didn't want to give him the money. Steinbrenner's house stepped in and gave him the money. It's a contract that they live to regret. I think when you look 5-6 years down the road here, the Yankees escaped a bullet here, Bob.
There's some truth to that, but only if they do something good in this offseason, more than what they did to stay in contention. Because the truth is, they're pretty good. The AL is not great like the NL, and you could argue that the Mets are going to have a tougher path to get to the World Series just because Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, the teams ahead of them, still good, maybe going to get better. The Dodgers look still pretty awesome, and they might get Sasaki. So the Yankees' path might be easier if they just do a little bit, and maybe Damergis is pretty good, and there's some improvement. So the cupboard's not bare. So they might have if they do the right things. But again, as a fan, man, having Judge and Soto back to back, that was epic. That was historic. It would have been fun. I thought he was the perfect Yankee. The stadium was perfect for him. His swing was perfect. The batting order was perfect with Judge and Stanton. And I thought he was popular with the fans. And I thought he was popular with teammate and management. Now didn't see any teammates complaining about him, but now there's some smaller issues, which I agree with Mark. It's nonsense. And it was about money, and it was definitely more than the $5 million at first. And, I mean, here's the truth. If he took only $700 million, it would have been more than he could ever spend in 100 lifetimes. So it was going to be ridiculous money anyway. So why have any of this petty stuff? Just tip your hat to Cohen. He has more money than the Steinbrenners. His presentation was great. The family thing, all of that's fine. So I don't like any of this sniping trying to make the other side look bad. They won fair and square. And apparently Steinbrenner and Cohen are even business associates, friends, and it's not coming from either side, their sides making the other one look bad. So it's ridiculous money, but that's kind of what sports is.
Yeah,
I
I
right,
mean,
Mark,
I think Yeah, I think it's coming from Boris's side. I mean, I do. Here's the problem you have with the vision, and someone within Soto's inner circle, whatever it might be. I did find it interesting that, Judge wasn't on full blast to try and, get his running mate back. I don't know if to read into it, when he was asked about it. I was there the night the Dodgers won the World Series at Yankee Stadium, and he said he knows how I feel. He's going to do what's right by his family. It's not like it was like Aaron Judge was flying out to California to have meetings with Juan Soto. I found that to be kind of interesting, and I don't know what it exactly means. Maybe it was a case of Judge was like, I'm just not going to get involved. This is his thing. The Yankees know how I feel. Soto knows how I feel. The other aspect you have is, we could look at this Yankee team. The Yankees, the only time they got through the American League in the last 15 years was with Soto being a part of it. Now you're taking Soto out of the mix. And Soto and Judge, as we watched this past year, covered up for a tremendous amount of warts on this team because of what they were offensively as a duo. Now you're looking at this brain trust. And listen, the Fried signing, did they overpay? Everyone's going to overpay in free agency. Who cares what the deal looks like in year 7 or 8? You're paying for him for the next 5 years. You've got Cole in his mid-30s. You've got Judge in his mid-30s. The time to win is now. You just went to the World Series. So can Max Fried help in the next 3 or 4 years? 100% he can, right? Don't worry about the back end of the deal. However, now you're looking at this group trying to put together a championship caliber team where they have failed so miserably. And I get the Astros cheating scandal in 17, but they have failed to do so to be able to get this team to the Fall Classic without Juan Soto. So now you're asking them to do it without him when they did that this past offseason coming off an 82 and 80 year. That's the concern that you have if you're a Yankee fan, is the vision of this organization to be able to do that.
Bob, the Yankees certainly filled the spots. They third base, second base, first base questions. They need another outfielder, maybe 2 outfielders. We don't know. And as you said, Moose, the American League is weak. They're going to make the playoffs unless it's a complete catastrophe, unless the pitching completely breaks down. But when you have that critical at-bat, that critical spot, do they have the players to do that? 17, 18, 19, DJ LeMahieu was that guy. After that, you saw how they struggled in the playoffs. Without Juan Soto, yes, the Yankees can fill the spots. Yes, they can fill the roles. But in that one at-bat, that one critical at-bat, that one critical pitch, that's where they're going to miss Soto the most, Bob.
Definitely. He is a generational hitter. If they say he only has 2 tools, so what? But one of the tools is hitting for power. He's one of the best in this generation. I wish that Stanton in the playoffs would be Stanton year round because he was unbelievable. He was such a force, and he was really, really tremendous. He just doesn't seem to stay healthy or be quite as dangerous in the regular season. But the offseason is young. They will do some things, and they won't replace Soto, man for man, but they'll do enough with other things to be possibly still the favorites in the AL East. I haven't seen, we got to see if the Red Sox and Blue Jays and do anything. So, yeah, it's going to be hard to get back, but it's easier in the American League. That's just a fact. It wasn't always the case. And I would say the Mets are still not yet the favorites in the National League. Phillies may do some things, and the Braves are always in there. And then there's the Dodgers sitting there, possibly going to get, some people say probably going to get Sasaki, and they're going to have Yamamoto for the whole season, and Ohtani. The Dodgers are a juggernaut. So it's fascinating to see. The Yankees definitely have to do more. Seeing a lot of this Kyle Tucker stuff, they get Kyle Tucker and maybe Christian Walker. Suddenly there's more pieces there. Again, no single one of them is better than Soto, maybe not even 2, but that suddenly makes the lineup deeper and better. And now it isn't just Judge and nothing. I don't really reasonably think that they'll get Kyle Tucker, though, because trading with Houston is dicey, and he's a free agent next year. So they want to do this dance. They want to do the Soto dance again, rent the player for a year, see what happens a year from now. I don't know. And I don't know if Tucker will sign the extension now. So it'd be great. But right now, I think that's social media talk, and I don't see it happening. But as a fan, I hope I'm wrong.
Mark, the final word here. Biggest story in maybe since A-Rod was traded to the Yankees. Would you say that in New York? Probably the biggest story New York has seen. Certainly
Uh,
Aaron Rodgers.
well, yeah. I mean, Rodgers, A-Rod. I mean, you could go back to the Piazza acquisition by the Mets from the Marlins. I mean, that's what that kind of move was on Sunday night. I mean, it took the focus away from the NFL. I mean, it was all focused on Major League Baseball. It was a move that crossed over sports lines. When you look at the fact that Juan Soto signs the richest singular contract in the history of professional sports, no deferred money, full no trade, everything, the escalators that are a part of it. That's why, Scott Boras was so excited to hit free agency. And that's why, to play to Bob's point, if I'm Kyle Tucker, why would I not want to hit free agency? When you're looking at, not saying he is not Juan Soto, like, let's be perfectly honest, but why would I not want to hit the open market, given the fact of if you're the right player at the right time, and that's what Soto was, and there is a bidding war. Your value, it doesn't matter what you are as a player. It's a matter of what you can possibly get, and the amount of money can be staggering. So, for the Yankees here, let's see exactly what they do in the offseason. The thing that I would be is, if I were Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner, even the relationship that Bob mentioned that he has with Steve Cohen, his business partner, here's what I'd be. I'd be ticked off. I'd want to react. And the Fried signing was a nice reaction, and giving Max Fried $218 million. But you got to do more. This idea of playing Jazz Chisholm at third base, go out there and get yourself a third baseman and move Chisholm to second base. Get yourself a first baseman. Get a guy at third base that can actually field the position, understands where the cutoff man needs to be, to where you're not having a guy to try and learn on the job. Wells is going to be a plus offensive player behind home plate. Move Judge back over to right field. Make the trade with the Cubs. Go get Bellinger to go out there and play center field. Bring in a left fielder that can actually field and hit. Outside of what you had this past year with Verdugo, who was a negative offensive player, but a really good defensive player. Like, those are the things that you need to do. Like, if you're the Yankees, go out there and be the Yankees. That's it. And listen, you lost out on Soto. You can build a championship team without Juan Soto. You really can. But you've got a lot of work to do, and there are a lot of holes that they need to fill up.